Good morning, Dr. Jim. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you very much. It's nice to be able to talk long distance.
Absolutely. And what time is it at your end? 7 a.m. or something?
It is a little after 7 o'clock this morning.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. That's really good of you. And I'm impressed with how bright-eyed and bushy-tailed you're looking at that time in the morning.
Well, it's great to have this experience to talk across so many miles and time zones.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And the reason for that, can you elucidate as to the reason as why we're having this conversation today?
Well, we're going to talk about the book that is going to be published.
This book, your book.
Yes, JudgeMeNot, 4 years in production.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, historically, it started about 4 years ago with a conversation with my daughter, Kim. She was talking with me one day and said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you write some stories about your life?" And I hadn't given it a thought until that moment. And after that, I got to thinking, well, why not? And I began shortly thereafter to write. At that point in my life, I really didn't know very much about writing a book. And I didn't even know the difference between an autobiography and a memoir. So I just started out writing chronologically from birth to where I am. And it turned out to be way too much in the wrong direction and a lot of problems. But thanks to you and a flock of others, we now have a book that I think hangs together well. And I'm proud of it and excited about it.
So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what the specific focus is for this memoir.
Well, in essence, it's a combination of things. It's an overview of a life story of a boy raised in an evangelical home who finds that he's not like other boys and is troubled through the teen years trying to decide what the difference is. And he's torn between his own attraction for his male companions and the social norms for marrying in what we today would call a straight marriage. Yeah. It took him years and years to make peace with that. And it's a story of what he went through in terms of his relationships with men in an attempt to find a loving relationship and eventually to be convinced that he had to come out of hiding in order to find his true self.
Yeah. And just to clarify, obviously you said a lot of he there, but it's actually, your story, isn't it?
Right, it's my story. I sometimes talk about he because in the story, we start with the boy, Jimmy, and we move along through a series of characters that were influential in his life. He's also along the way in communication with the torments that you might call your conscience. And those I've depicted in their various personalities as voices. And they have always interacted with me since puberty. They still interact with me today. But in the book, they are major characters that deliberate the life issues that I have to face.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the standout things about the book is that sort of, as you call it, the boardroom of your mind, where you've got all these characters that you breathe life into so that the reader can actually visualize each of them and how they look and how they act and their different ages. And I think that's one of the real standout, unique aspects of this memoir. It's taken 4 years for this book to come to fruition, and it's out on Thursday for everybody listening. And you'll be able to read it free on Kindle Unlimited, as well as downloading the eBook or purchasing the paperback. So the title, Judge Me, Judge Me Not, can you tell me where that came from?
Yes, actually, it comes from childhood. As strange as it may seem, it came from childhood. Many of the readers may have lived in an area where there were wild daisies growing in the fields. And when I was growing up, daisies were often picked by children, and then the petals of the blossoms were pulled off and a background chant was recited at that time, which was "Love me, love me not."
Yeah.
love me not.
Yeah.
And as I began to write this book, the question of judgment and love came to my mind.
Mm.
And I asked myself questions like, in order to be loved, must you also be judged?
Mm.
And in a sense, the title, in my mind, is reflecting that question. Is love dependent on judgment? And does judgment affect love? If you are judged negatively, can you be loved? And so I felt this as a child growing up, that judgment was often harsh and that love was dependent on acceptance. And if judgment was harsh, love was not available. So embedded in the title, in the rhythm, judge me not, is the same rhythm as love me not, from the Daisy story.
What did you really enjoy about writing the book, if anything?
I want to twist your question just a little bit, because the book is not a book about joy itself, but it is a book about truth, and it is a book about hope. And I think those are two important themes in the book. There's a lot of truth in the book itself, and I would think that one of the great truths of the book is that you can, in fact, find your true self, and that leads to a quality of life unattainable for men, boys who are in the closet. Until they come out, they really can't be their true self. And in my case, that opened a whole new world of happiness and pleasure, and a relationship with meaning, and a sense of liberation from the confines of my upbringing and the restriction. I think the hardest problem that I had to deal with, or the most dramatic problem in terms of soul searching, was truth. How could I tell the truth when I had kept so much of it a secret all of my life up until that point? I wanted to write the truth, but I really didn't know how to tell the truth when it came to issues of sexuality. And the sexual part of my new life as a gay male was a very powerful sexual experience. And to be truthful, I had to include that in the writing. I simply, in the beginning, didn't know how to do it. I felt a certain sense of embarrassment because I wasn't sure whether or not my children, their children, and their children, my great-grandchildren, would read this book. And I was tempted to temper it. But if I did that, I realized it would be a whitewash job. It wouldn't be true, it wouldn't be honest, it wouldn't be straightforward. And the sexual part of my coming out was one of the most important aspects of becoming a gay male. And I had to include that in as much detail as I was competent enough to do. And the story then will involve sexual content that is explicit, but that was an important part of my life, and it's an important part of my life story.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it's fundamental to the story. If you take that out, then you just lose something. You lose that truth, that genuine nature of the story, because it was so integral to your journey of self-discovery and eventually to coming to live your authentic self. The essence of the story is still that truth that you were seeking, and to find the courage to be truthful, not only to yourself but to everybody around you. And that took some real courage. So, you know, kudos, hats off, and a round of applause to you to be that brave, to opening yourself up to potentially, you know, the world.
I'm hoping that the book will be able to be of assistance to a variety of people, not only to young men who are, or older men who are troubled by coming out or not coming out. I think it offers hope for those who want to come out but don't know how to do it. It's an example of how one person did it, how I did it. And it is also, I think, honest in terms of the potential losses. There's a price to pay for coming out. And I think my book is honest and open about telling what those prices were that I paid. But the liberation that comes, the self-respect that comes, the new the new aspect of living when you live your true self and make a whole new circle of support people who honor you and who you are. That's worth the price in my conclusion. It's worth the price, but there
Absolutely.
is a price to pay.
But I think also there's a price that you pay by not living authentically as well, isn't there? And keeping your true self bottled up, and there's a price to pay for you, both yourself and for those people around you, by not living authentically. But the courage that it takes to do that is immense. But I think, again, one of the great things about this book is that it is that candle of hope, as one of our reviewers, advanced reviewers, said. But it's also the fact that it's never too late. You know, I hear tales of people in their 50s and 60s thinking, well, you know, I don't want to rock the boat now, it's too late for me. But your story shows that it's never too late to be true to yourself.
Correct. You're right.
So 4 years in the making. 2 days away is the day of release worldwide on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. How does that feel?
I guess I could say it in one word. I could say joyous. Okay. Maybe that's a little too short. So I could also say that what it's done, it's opened a whole new world for me. I'm 84 years old. There are a lot of things I no longer am physically able to do. And what this book has allowed me to do is to open this whole world of writing, which is so enriching for my life. And I have learned many things, thanks to you and others who have shepherded me through this process. I've learned a lot about writing, and now I'm excited about writing. So the joyousness is, I have to share that. Not only is it joyfulness about the book itself, because it feels like an accomplishment, but it's a sense of joy that it has opened a whole new door at an age when maybe some people have given up. It's opened a whole new door for me to explore for many years to come, I hope.
Marvelous. So this is not to be, your magnus opus and the only book you'll publish. You have ambitions to continue to write and get your different stories out there.
I certainly hope so. I have learned to love the writing, and now that I have a whole battery of skills that I can employ, it's a wonderful challenge.
I suppose my final question to you, Dr. Jim, would be, why should people read your book?
I think my answer to that would have to be in a more serious vein. We live in a homophobic world, and the world is tainted with misinformation about gay, lesbian, and other LGBTQ people. I think the reader owes it to themselves to learn from the experiences of others like me, who are a source of truth, because the misinformation is always there. The truth sometimes is harder to acquire, and books like mine, I hope, will allow the opportunity for truth to seep in and to be a counterpoint to the misinformation that is easily available.
I think also this is not just for people struggling with their sexuality. I think it's a good thing for allies to read, and also people that don't understand LGBTQ people, to give an insight into your particular experience. I think it's good for that purpose too.
Yes, I agree with you. Definitely parents of gay youth, even for wives who have found out that their husband is struggling with homosexuality. This is a resource that people who are not familiar with life as an LGBTQ person, they will, I hope, gain an insight.
And one of our ARC reviewers, gay author Nathan Burgoyne, he mentioned that it's a piece of history that's really important, because we don't get our histories passed down to us in the way other cultures and communities do, through families and friendship circles. So it's that piece of history that's now going to be out there in the world for future LGBT youth to grab onto and to understand.
Yes, that's true. And the way the book is designed, it is designed to have a historic perspective. I've tried to include throughout the book references to the events that are taking place nationally in our lives, as well as references in the Bible that have influenced the upbringing that my parents were committed to.
So the upshot is Thursday, the 30th of September, 2021. Get out there and onto your Amazon, wherever you are in the world, and buy this book, download it onto your Kindle, and flick through at your leisure and really absorb the lessons and the truth and the courage of it. So thank you very much for joining me, Jim, and the very best of luck on release day. And maybe now you can have breakfast.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to prospective readers and to share some of the history of the book itself.
Perfect. All right then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.